We are going to be beginning with the potential end of the UAW strike with the big Detroit 3 automakers. So let's go ahead and take a look at what's happened with the latest developments this morning. It was this morning at Solidarity House that a tentative deal was made between GM and the UAW. Here is some of the details that we are hearing come out. The contract is for 4 years. It includes a 25% general pay raise and cost of living adjustments. And of course, the UAW made a deal with Stellantis on Saturday and Ford before that. So everything really starting to come to a close, and ratification then is the next step for all three of the companies. GM, of course, is hoping to get its plants back up and running, especially in Spring Hill, Tennessee, where they shut down on Wednesday in those last hours of negotiations before getting a tentative contract deal. But this really is good news for workers and for the company today as they start to hear more about the details. So let's check in now with Will Jones, who did speak to some workers earlier on today. And Will, I know you're on the move, but it's good to see you. So tell us what workers are saying after they finally got the news this morning.
Hey, Christy, we're in the live truck. We're trying to go over to University of Michigan to interview an auto industry expert. Just ask my photographer if we could kind of move around. We're going to park at a gas station and get a little better video on me. The light was shining in my face. But now that we got that out of the way, I was over in Van Buren Township talking with workers at the GM's Willow Run Distribution Center, and workers told me they had their phones out and they started getting alerts about that this strike could potentially be over, that a tentative agreement was reached with GM. A lot of excitement, but they remain out on the picket line waiting for the official word. And this has been 6 weeks, and a lot of workers have been trying to make ends meet with $500 a week. So a lot of excitement. They're just waiting for the official word that they can pack it up and get back to work. Christy?
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how everything kind of settles now with the UAW and with the, the Detroit 3. And when you're talking about talking to an auto analyst and where things then stand for the company after making these historic deals for them, it is going to be interesting to see how the balance sheet all works out here.
And this has been a historic strike. This is the first time that the UAW has struck all three automakers at the same time. So I want to hear from experts and analysts to see their thoughts on, was this the right move for Shawn Fain to do it all at the same time instead of focusing on one and then hoping that leads to agreements with the other. And also this piecemeal approach where some workers are on strike, but others are still working. So I spoke with one worker this morning, and he was just saying that only a small fraction of the membership had to make some sacrifices. Other people were still getting their full pay while others were on the picket line surviving on $500 a week. So a lot of questions. Was this the right route to get to what they wanted? And you have to remember, originally they wanted 40% wage increases, and with these agreements, it's only 25%.
All right, Will Jones reporting for us, and I know you're heading off to Ann Arbor, and we'll see your reports later on in Local 4 News at 5 and 6 o'clock today. Thanks so much. And I think what Will was talking about, this really has been an intense six plus weeks of negotiations, and we've seen a lot on either side. And with what both sides are saying are historic deals. It's not over yet. Membership, of course, has to vote. But with me now is Nathan Bomey. He's a business reporter with Axios. And Nathan, it's good to see you again. Hey, when you go into negotiations, not everyone leaves happy. It's supposed to be that way, where everyone feels okay. How would you say that both sides are feeling about this as we step back and look and say, this is pretty much the deals for GM, Ford, and Stellantis?
Well, the UAW is certainly citing this as a huge victory, and the automakers, I don't think, are particularly happy. I think it is a win for the UAW. I don't know that it's a triumphant win. They got something close to what they wanted. Like your reporter mentioned, they did ask for 40% wage increases at the beginning. They settled for 25%. I think most people would say that's still pretty good. They got the cost of living adjustments back, and they got some other benefits, but they didn't get some things. They didn't get the pensions. They didn't get the 32-hour work week. Maybe they never realistically believed that would happen, but they did settle in the middle. And, I think that that's obviously good news for the automakers. They needed to get these plants back online. I think there's a consensus that they can probably absorb these costs, but over time, it will make it more expensive to make vehicles, and that could make it more difficult to compete with their toughest rivals.
Yeah, that was my next question for you, Nathan. How does this set the companies up to compete when they do have to scramble to get back online and look at where they're going to be spending now?
Well, there was already a wage gap between the Detroit Three and the foreign automakers and Tesla. And now that wage gap is going to grow. And so I think the UAW is under pressure now to actually go and try to organize those other automakers so that their workers at the Detroit Three aren't suddenly in a position where they're not as competitive, because certainly the UAW doesn't want to compromise the future of its own employees. So they've already acknowledged they're going to go out and try to organize the other automakers. They haven't cited specific names, but I think you can expect Toyota and Tesla, perhaps Volkswagen, Nissan, others to be in their crosshairs.
So if you are a worker at one of those plants, maybe down south, and you're looking at what Shawn Fain was able to achieve here, are you saying, hey, maybe I'm going to organize, maybe I'm going to listen a little bit more, and that's the way we should go, that he did a good thing here?
Yeah, I talked to the president of the UAW local in Kentucky, where the Kentucky Ford plant was part of the strike there. And he said he believes that there is actually significant support at the Kentucky plant for Toyota to organize. Now, the UAW went after that plant many years ago and failed to get anything going. But this is a different UAW, and they're really ambitious here. And I think, their other crown jewel would be Tesla. Obviously, Tesla, the plant in California, maybe California is a more pro-union state. Maybe they have a better chance there. But again, they tried there several years ago and failed. But the UAW has cleaned up its act, the corruption scandals behind them. Maybe they've got more momentum here because they've been in the headlines for so long, and workers are seeing that they've made significant gains.
So much has been said about the tactics that Shawn Fain has taken, and I think he's become a household name now. And again, when you talk about the new era of the UAW and how maybe even the rest of the country now looks at organized labor, because labor really is having a moment across a lot of industries, what would you say would be, I guess, Shawn Fain's headliner when you step back to write the book about what we just all witnessed?
Well, I don't know about a book, Christy. Don't get too far out ahead of me. But no,
come on, Nathan, you got time on your hands. I know you can get to work on this.
Well, I will say that I think that Shawn Fain has emerged from this as a leader of the national union movement. I think that there's no question that he has ambitions beyond the UAW to expand this to a broader movement across the country. I think you look at the fact that he wants all other unions to have their contracts expire on May 1st. That's what he's just saying here in the last couple of days. May 1st being May Day, Labor Day, where workers celebrate their rights. If he were to pull something like that off, that illustrates that he has taken a step beyond just the UAW. And I think he really does envision this as a much broader movement.
Yeah, and we look forward now. How do we, I guess, watch these next couple of weeks? Because of course, we say that the membership has to ratify these deals and that it should go forward the way it's supposed to. But you saw what happened with Mack Truck. They sent those deals back. They said no go. What should we watch for now? And I guess what are some of the words you're looking to hear from the automakers and then also from the union?
I think it's a really important question, and I'm glad you mentioned Mack Trucks, because there the workers did turn down the agreement that the UAW made, and I think the UAW had some egg on its face there, realizing that they agreed to a deal that the workers wouldn't accept. I think the question here is, did Shawn Fain promise too much? Are the workers disappointed because they didn't get the 32-hour work week, for example, and they did not get the pensions? I think the consensus is that they'll probably go with this, that ultimately they feel like 25% is going to be really strong, but we'll have to wait and see. I think that what the automakers are going to tell their investors is that we held the line as much as we could, and the union is going to tell its members that we squeezed every ounce of blood out of the automakers and we couldn't get any more.
All right. So, Nathan, what are you going to be working on this week?
Well, I think we want to look at what's going to happen with that broader union movement and what happens next with the UAW, because I think they have so much momentum now that they're going to want to pivot quickly to the other automakers. But that's a process that takes a lot of time. And when you're trying to organize in the South, we know no one's done it yet. We know that in Volkswagen, for example, they failed at the Chattanooga plant in Tennessee. They failed with Tesla in California. Long ago, they couldn't get going at Toyota in Kentucky. But again, a different UAW and a different climate in this country.
And also, it gets me thinking a little bit about politics, too, and the power of the unions in a political year as well, and the resurgence of it.
And we have to see whether after this is over, the UAW does go ahead and endorse President Biden, because, of course, they have withheld that endorsement throughout this process, and they are concerned and continue to be concerned about the transition to electric vehicles. So, and I think the UAW has some different political calculuses than before, because in the past it was obviously reliably pro-Democrat, and I don't necessarily think they're going to become conservative overnight, but we do know that they have been a little startled by how many of their own members have voted for Donald Trump in the last 2 elections. And so, although no one expects them to endorse Donald Trump, let's see if they line up behind President Biden now that the contracts are basically done.
Yeah, there's a lot to watch. And Nathan Bomey, business reporter for Axios, it's really good to have you. Appreciate the perspective, and we'll be watching what you write in the next couple of weeks. Appreciate it.